Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from Yellow Cat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Today we have new amazing stories, so subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. What was your most awkward, sorry but I don't work here moment? I've had this happen more than once, but I'll tell you the best story. I worked at a movie theater all through high school and college. By the time I quit, I was a manager. I got used to standing in the same spot at work so I could see what was going on and give the impression of being in charge. I call this the manager position. Anyway, I still love going to the movies. I try to go at least once a week, and a lot of the time I go with people I used to work with. I got there early one day because I was coming straight from work. Not consciously, I was wearing a colored button-down shirt and pants, which is pretty much the same uniform for theater managers. To keep this interesting, I take on the role of manager. Then a woman asks me where the bathroom is and I show her the way. Soon after, another couple walks up and asks which movie theater they should go to. Luckily, it was the same show I was seeing, so I knew. I told them the number of the theater and led them down the right hallway. Then a woman comes yelling Holocaust up the hallway at no one in particular. Because I don't work there, I'll just keep an eye out for my friends. After yelling at me for ignoring her, she grabs my arm and turns me around against my will. Her movie's broken and needs to be fixed. She kept telling me over and over that I needed to fix it, even though I tried telling her I didn't work there. Someone who actually works there eventually comes up to her, tells her I don't work there, and goes to help her. After a short time, the current manager, who knew me from when I worked there, came up to me and said she was sorry that the woman had talked to me. He asked me if I could help fix the problem with her movie after I told him it wasn't a big deal. This caught me off guard since I was no longer working for them. But he told me it was a problem with the film print, the movie was made before digital, that his new projectionist couldn't fix. I had to help fix it, so I went up. When I got back to the lobby about 10 minutes later, my friends asked where I'd been and were shocked that the theater would ask someone who wasn't working there for help. I used to work in a bar that was only 5 minutes walk from Tesco. Between 4 and 5 p.m. every Saturday, the bar would slow down, so I was sent to Tesco to get fruit, mint, and juice for the night. I also had a customer mistake me for a Tesco employee almost every Saturday. My work uniform didn't even look like the Tesco uniform, so I never understood why they did that. One of the best times someone thought I worked at Tesco was when a woman came up to me with cartons of juice in her hands. She began to complain about bad service and staff who weren't willing to help. She kept cutting me off when I tried to tell her that I didn't work there. She finally told me she wanted to talk to my boss. I said, "Oh, you'll have to go to the bar around the corner to speak to the manager. That's where she is." At first, the woman looked shocked, but then she said, "Well, that makes sense. This place is run like a bad circus. Your boss is drinking at work in a bar. I knew it would happen." "No," I said, "I work at that bar and was sent here for stock. You can talk to my boss in person if you want to." She immediately realized the mistake she had made and became much nicer and very apologetic to me. It took place about 10 years ago. It was a few days after Christmas and I had been sent out to repair some equipment at a Kmart store. I was able to load my truck and clean up after the job was done well. All that was left for me to do was to get a manager to sign my papers. I asked to be paged for him at the customer service desk and then waited for him to show up. When this little old lady walked in the door, she saw my uniform and started walking toward me. I was still standing there with my clipboard, not paying much attention to anything. Now is the time to go back and say a few. The first being my employer had changed our uniforms about 6 months earlier to a design that made me look like an assistant manager at every single store I set foot in. People would stop me and ask where things were or something similar. People even came up to me during my lunch break at a fast food chain to complain about different things. It didn't really bother me. I thought it was funny most of the time. Second, I want to say that even though you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, eyes can sometimes tell you a lot about a person. The old lady in this store was no different. It looked like the last time she smiled it was during Eisenhower's presidency. I began to explain that I did not work there. I got as far as "I'm sorry, ma'am," before she barked at me to "Shut up, Sonny, and listen to me for a minute." That's a direct quote. To this day, I'm not sure if I shut up because I was shocked at her rudeness or just because my brain was trying to work out whether or not I had actually heard someone use the term "sonny" in actual conversation. She took advantage of my stunned silence to launch into a diatribe about her experience the last time she shopped there. It had to do with coupons and how her things were packed, among other things. I tried to tell her again that I didn't work there when she took a moment to catch her breath. "Ma'am, I can't," she cut me off by yelling, "I said shut up!" And then she starts her ranting again. I try to stay out of fights, but I can usually handle myself. I'd just been dragged into unknown territory by this old bat. Up until that point, nothing in my life had ever prepared me to deal with a small, angry old woman. I was more than half afraid she was going to have a stroke right there on the spot. I gave her some time to calm down and then tried again, this time louder. "Ma'am, I don't work." Then she tries to put her hand over my mouth. I had to hold my clipboard in front of my face to keep her away. Some of my grandfather's wise words helped me out at that moment. He once told me that anything you say will make someone more angry. Deal with them after they calm down. Just stand there and let them rant until they stop. The best part is that they don't feel good about it, and they look even worse for it than they would have if you yelled back. So I chose to do nothing but stand there, nod, and listen until she stopped. I didn't say anything. After giving me a long look, she said, "Well?" in a very direct way. I said something like, "Well, what?" Old lady, "Aren't you gonna help me?" I keep my voice calm, but speak louder than absolutely necessary. "No, but if you want my opinion, I'd go talk to someone who works here." Finally, she looked quickly at the logo on my uniform shirt. Her eyes grew a little wider when she saw that it didn't say Kmart. I suddenly realized how quiet it had gotten. Someone looked over my shoulder and told me that everyone nearby had stopped to watch the show. Everyone in the front half of the store heard her scream, even though it was already busy with people returning items and buying whole carts full of Christmas clearance items. After someone snorted and made a noise like they were choked, everyone started laughing. At first, I hadn't thought it was funny, but when it did, I couldn't keep myself together. She looked around and opened and closed her mouth as if she meant to say something but changed her mind. After a few seconds, she turned around and marched herself right back out the wrong way through the entrance door without so much as a muttered apology. "Thanks for the advice, Grandpa. You were a far wiser man than I ever realized." I want you to share your best "I finally got my retribution on HOA" tales. For the sake of clarity, let's begin with some background here. The HOA was fine most of the time, but the Christmas display was partly an attempt to get back at the board for a stupid rule. There's an HOA in my friend's development, which is much newer than mine, but we both live in the same township and neighborhood. Because the neighborhood is next to a county park, there are many wild animals living there, including the raccoon, which is everybody's favorite trash thief. By law, trash cans can only be put out 24 hours before they're picked up, but bags can only be put out an hour before they're picked up. Pickup is at 5 a.m. The ordinance said that the HOA couldn't let any trash out after 24 hours, which they did. No one in the development knew why people were getting fined until I told my friend about the ordinance. Then everyone found out that the township, not the HOA, was given the fines. Most people didn't want to buy the required trash can, so they used bags instead and got fined for it. For the same reason as before, they'd be fined if the trash was picked up late. Everyone in that neighborhood gave up and got trash cans. Our township has a board of trustees that runs things and provides police and fire protection. Other townships in my county hire the sheriff to keep them safe. The county does not pick up trash, that job is contracted out. Now for the story. The people who live in the neighborhood where my friend lives have very strict rules about lawn decorations and ornaments. It's important to know that they already banned pink flamingos, and for Christmas they want the house to have a theme. There was a way for my friend to mess with them that I found in the Bahamas. He chose the theme Christmas in Paradise. To get the group to agree, he said that the bright colors would help them get through the dark winter we were having. They enthusiastically agreed with it, but they didn't know why. He got some paper palm trees and 9 pink flamingos from a friend to build Santa a sled. They looked like reindeer antlers, and one in front of them had a red nose stuck on. His flamingos had lights instead of bells on their reins. The house had lights, fake palm trees, and a sign that said Christmas in Paradise. When I was in the Bahamas, I saw a painting that made me think of the whole setup. I bought it for a friend who has a collection of flamingos because it fit with his theme. Because, 1, my friend was able to show him the picture I purchased for our friend who's a flamingo collector, and 2, the rule stated that you could add anything that was plausible with your theme. The HOA enforcement officer was irritated when he realized that he was unable to do anything about the situation. Flamingos in pink for Christmas in Paradise. I live in an area with a shady HOA. I refuse to join because it's not in my deed. Haven't signed any papers, and I don't agree with what they're doing. Unfortunately, my house is in the middle of nowhere where things are very slow and dishonest. They've been very rude and annoying to me. I've asked for a restraining order and called the police several times in the past. Now, one of the HOA leaders has family ties to the police, and that police officer lived next door to me for a year. I think he had something to do with shutting down my restraining order request. One of the HOA members came to my house a few months ago and walked all the way onto my property, even though I had called the police on other members before for trespassing and damage to property and had cameras at the driveway. He was part of some of the harassment against me, so I knew who he was even though I'd never met him. Before he even got to the door, I told him right away to leave the property. He didn't, so he glared at me and then got angry, asking me what he had ever done to me. Lastly, I told him I'd call the police right now if he didn't leave. He gave me a letter on the ground that asked for money, even though they knew I'm not going to pay for their crap. It was an email from their group, and they don't include me in those. He had printed it out earlier that day, and there were no more addresses on it because they'd been taken out. They'd gotten their money a few months before. Anyway, I did call the police because I think this is a typical case of trespassing, but they sent an officer who's related to one of the HOA leaders. He told me a bunch of crap about how I should pay into the HOA and how the prosecutor would see it as neighborly, even though this person isn't even my neighbor, and not trespassing, even though the officer knew about my history with this group. He was a jerk who tried to make me feel like I was the problem because I wasn't being neighborly by gaslighting me for not contributing. I think it's BS because the state where I'm from, trespass is a violation. This is how I got back at them. I had enough of them bothering me and the dishonest police officer who was with them. I got together all my proof, including videos of the harassment, copies of the police reports, and the most recent case of trespassing with a letter demanding money. I also wrote down everything I said to the clearly biased police officer. With this evidence in hand, I made a formal complaint to the State Attorney's General Office and the police's Internal Affairs Department. I also told my story to the local media and gave them all the proof of the harassment and corruption. Quickly, the story caught on. People were furious with how the HOA acted and how the police officer behaved badly. People and higher-ups put pressure on the government to start an independent investigation. The biased police officer was fired and will now have to deal with the consequences for his actions. The leaders of the HOA thought they could pick on me without getting in trouble, but now they're being investigated by the police for harassment and running a fake HOA. They're being looked into for possible financial wrongdoing and could be sued by several residents. I not only got justice, but I showed how corrupt and unpleasant things were. The community is coming together to support me, and there are even plans to get rid of the fake HOA. Revenge comes with a side of justice, it's even better. Guys, thank you for all the support and likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. See you next time.